Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tendon Talk. Today, we're going to be talking about your gut health and how it can be linked to anxiety. So, I do understand correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation, but there is a lot of research, increasing amounts of research actually, that is starting to show specifically IBS and how it can be linked to things like anxiety, depression, autoimmune diseases, even imbalances in things like serotonin and GABA and dopamine. So I want to talk about anxiety, how it can be linked to your gut health, how to tell if your anxiety is being driven by your digestive system, and some gentle ways that you can start to support an anxious body by addressing things like your nervous system and your digestive system, right? So if you don't know, we do have these Tendon Talks every Tuesday, and I try to do them live. If I'm unable to get them live, I do post them up, and I try to answer as many questions as I can, and we do have a live Q&A that same day in our Discord server. So that being said, all of that's going to be linked below, but let's get into it today. So we're going to start with talking about dysbiosis and inflammation and how this triggers your stress response system. Right? So if you don't already know, dysbiosis is essentially your gut being imbalanced, right? So you've probably heard a lot about the gut microbiome, how you're supposed to have all of this good bacteria in your digestive tract that helps the gut function, right? It keeps your inflammation levels low. It helps your immune system function. It helps boost your mood through serotonin, GABA production. It helps to get information through your vagus nerve up to the brain in healthy ways. And obviously, it is going to help to break down the food that you eat and assimilate those nutrients into something that your body can use for energy, whether that's going to energy that helps you get through your daily life or energy that goes to healing and repair of cells and tissues. So when you have things like candida or SIBO or some type of bad bacteria overgrowth where your good bacteria is kind of struggling, that's where you get the dysbiosis. Something is going on where your gut bacteria just aren't really where they need to be like in this balance, in this homeostatic environment so that they can thrive, so that you can thrive. So, and essentially, when you have this dysbiosis, that can lead to low-grade inflammation. And we talk a lot on this channel about how stress can lead to inflammation. Inflammation can lead to dis-ease, which essentially is chronic illnesses and chronic health issues that unfortunately I believe are not addressed in a proper manner. But again, that's my personal opinion. Take it or leave it. So when low-grade inflammation is in your digestive tract for an extended period of time, what happens is it is not going to stay in your gut. So when it doesn't stay in your digestive tract, it goes throughout the rest of your body, right? It spreads. And you've probably heard the term leaky gut. I know a lot of people in Western medicine don't like that term specifically. But there is, science that is linking poor gut health and inflammation to an increased porosity to things like autoimmune diseases now. So, and anxiety. But let's backtrack a little bit. That inflammation that gets spread throughout the body communicates with all of your cells, telling them to be in a stressed state, telling them that something is wrong, telling your body essentially that it's in immediate danger. And a lot of that communication goes through that vagus nerve that we talk about and goes into the brain. And two things with that. One, when you have a leaky gut long enough, you have that low-grade inflammation long enough, it's going to spread to the brain. You're going to get leaky brain essentially, right? You get that low-grade brain inflammation where you have the anxiety, you have the irritability, you're easily overwhelmed, easily started, you've got the brain fog, you're forgetting why you walked into a room, right? Even if you don't have a lot of obvious gut symptoms, it can be stemming from your digestive tract. So for me, when I was first, I wouldn't say it was like in my bedridden phase because I was bedridden for like almost a year. Before I got to my bedridden phase, I had a lot of low-grade inflammation for several years, and I didn't realize it, unfortunately. And my hormones were completely out of whack, my stress hormones, because my gut health was completely out of whack. Also, if you didn't know, the majority of your immune system is in the gut, right? So if you have inflammation there, there's going to be tension, there's going to be inflammation. Your body's not going to have a proper immune response all over the body, right? So your immune response is a part of your stress response. So if there's that gut inflammation, neither are going to be working properly. And that's going to be all over the body, that stress response is not essentially responding appropriately. And you're going to have that tension everywhere, right? And inflammation everywhere. So for example, if someone feels fine, they're not having a lot of digestive issues, but they're constantly feeling anxious or having palpitations or feeling on edge after their meals, it could be inflammatory signaling that's not happening properly, right? It could be their stress response system's not, not working the way that it should be. It's getting triggered by digestive inflammation or foods that you're eating. Something about that process is not working right? Like maybe you're fine all day, but then you go to eat dinner and then you're super anxious and your muscles are really tense. And you start to get really nauseous and clammy, right? That's not just coincidence, especially if it's happening more than once. It's happening like every day after you eat dinner, or maybe during certain times of your cycle consistently. I promise you it's not a coincidence. That is absolutely your body trying to tell you something. So I do also want to mention that we talk a lot about nervous system regulation and fight or flight versus your parasympathetic response. We do a lot of breathing exercises and mindfulness and journaling, and that's fantastic, right? I'm a huge advocate for those things. I think they're very important. But I do want to say that nervous system regulation alone is not going to work long term for you if your gut is inflamed. So if you've been trying some of the techniques that we talk about on the channel, and maybe you've kind of, your body started healing or recovering to a certain point, but you're reaching this threshold and you're just limited right there, and you're not making more progress. Part of it could be because your digestive tract's inflamed, right? Especially if you're having anxiety and palpitations. It could be that, your gut is influencing these things. And, it's important to take a look at it on a deeper level so that we can figure out what's going on in your body and what your body specifically needs, right? So when we have physical inflammation, especially throughout the body, like we were talking about, you're not going to be able to just breathe your way out of that. However, breathing can improve it. Doesn't mean it's going to completely fix it, but that also doesn't mean that it's not going to impact it at all, right? When your gut is inflamed and it's dysregulated, that inflammation is constantly sending signals through that vagus nerve up to your brain and triggering your nervous system and saying, hey brain, something is wrong. We don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. Like, listen to us. We need to do something, and we need to do something now, right? Even if you think you're doing all the right things, you're eating healthy, you're exercising, doing the breath work, if you still have that underlying low-grade inflammation, those signals are still being sent to the brain. The brain is responding with a stress response. So if you're someone who constantly feels anxious and restless after meals, it could be that, right? So think about if you're sitting in your house and you have your smoke alarm or your fire alarm going off, right? And it's just blaring really loud constantly. And you're trying to meditate. It's not going to be very effective, right? Unless you're like a monk and you can just tune everything out, right? Your system is going to continuously be pulled out of that calm that you're trying to create and back into that alert mode with that blaring fire alarm, right? And that is how that gut inflammation works. It is a biological stressor, right? Like your body feels unsafe. It feels tense no matter how safe your external environment is. When you have that internal environment inflamed, it's sending signals of unsafe to your nervous system, right? And we talk a lot on our channel about our nervous system doesn't really understand English, or it doesn't understand languages and words really, right? What our nervous system understands is feeling. How does it feel, right? So when your body feels unsafe, no matter how much you tell it it's safe, no matter how safe that external environment is, the brain is still going to say, oh crap, we're not safe. We're not okay. We need to react as such. Hence the panic attacks or palpitations or clenched fist and clenched jaw and tense shoulders, right? That we get when we have a lot of anxiety. So now this doesn't mean, like I said, this doesn't mean that nervous system tools cannot be helpful, because they are helpful, but they're going to work best when you combine it with gut support, right? Not instead of gut support, but when you combine it with gut support, assuming that gut inflammation is driving your anxiety. So, well, how do you even tell if your anxiety is being triggered by your digestive system, right? So let's talk about a few different things that, you know, can indicate that your gut might be driving any mental health symptoms. And I'm not saying anyone's anxiety is fully caused by this. I'm just giving you guys some information. Do your research, talk to your doctor about it, take care of yourself, right? So let's talk about it. If you're feeling more anxious or edgy after eating, for me, what would happen in the very beginning, I would eat something and literally within like 5 to 10 minutes, panic attack every single time. I couldn't figure it out. For the longest time, I thought it was my blood sugar, right? Doctors kept testing my blood sugar. It was fine. It wasn't that. Like a year and a half later, I myself finally figured out, oh, it's histamine reactions, right? So I was having these essentially allergic reactions to food that I'd eaten my entire life because there was so much gut inflammation. It was thinking everything was a threat. So even though my external environment was safe, I was home, I was bedridden, I was taken care of, internally I had a lot of inflammation. So it was constantly triggering that fight or flight mode, constantly elevating my cortisol, constantly triggering panic attacks. And I was having like 6 or 7 in a day at that time. So if you're feeling anxious after you eat, if you're getting brain fog or fatigue after you eat, again, yes, this could be blood sugar related, but it also could be related to just gut inflammation in general. Now, if your anxiety is showing up suddenly without mental triggers, so when you're getting this anxiety after eating, even sometimes there can be really delayed food reactions, like 3 to 4 hours after you eat. And there's certain types of reactions that happen even 3 days after eating a food. So when I say that it's very important to keep a food journal if you're wanting to figure out what your triggers are, what's going on in your body, how to help your body best, I mean it. Like if you can keep a 7 to 30 day food journal and write down like what you're eating and how you're feeling after you're eating, and like give little timestamps, whether I felt anxious 10 minutes after eating, or I felt really fatigued an hour after eating, or, you know, maybe I had diarrhea 2 hours after eating. Whatever it is, write it down, watch the trends, watch the patterns. You can figure out what's going on, at least for the most part, and start to work on improving it, right? So also, if you're getting bloated or gassy immediately after eating, huge red flags, right? Bloating can impact that vagus nerve negatively, which can influence the brain, which can trigger the stress response and incite anxiety, right? It also can make you more short of breath, which shortness of breath can in turn cause anxiety because you're not taking those really deep breaths that help to stimulate that parasympathetic rest, digest, and heal state, right? So it's putting you, even though it's just breathing, it's putting you in that sympathetic state and your brain's on high alert, right? Another thing, if you're craving a lot of carbs. So when we're under a lot of stress, even if it's gut inflammation that's driving that stress response, it's going to make you crave carbs. Another thing that can make you crave carbs is that dysbiosis that we talked about earlier. So, you know, you have the good gut bacteria, the bad gut bacteria, they're kind of fighting it out, and the bad gut bacteria is winning. They thrive on junk food. They thrive on sugar, right? On heavily processed foods, right? They thrive on that. So they're telling you, hey, this is what we need because we want to survive. And that can be part of where you're getting those cravings. It's not always like insulin resistance driving sugar cravings. So if you're someone who has tried things like therapy or journaling or some of the breath work or nervous system regulation techniques that we talk about here, and your body still feels like it's anxious all of the time or it's stuck in that fight or flight mode, try a food journal, right? Like try to assess any patterns that are coming up and see what your body is really doing when you're eating, especially certain foods. So let's dive into some ways that you can start to really support your digestive tract to help alleviate some of those anxious symptoms that are coming up because that stress response is being triggered. So I know we talked about not focusing too much on the nervous system or not focusing only on the nervous system, but I do want to take a moment to focus on that nervous system and talk about some things that you can do to support your digestion from that point. So one of the first things that you can do is to eat slowly, appreciate your cat when he gets in the way, and chew your food, right? So chewing your food, I know you don't want to hear it because I didn't want to hear it, 20 to 30 times. And believe me, I'm going easy on you with the 20 to 30 because there's some research that says 30 to 50 times a bite. I know that is a lot. Believe me, I get it. I had to do it for a while. Definitely don't hit 20 to 30 per bite. I try to when I think about it, but I'm going to be honest, I don't always do it. But that being said, you guys are here. You're this far into this video because you want to know how to support your digestion, how to improve your anxiety through your gut. And I'm telling you, chewing your food will help. The reason why chewing your food helps so much is because chewing your food is the first part of your digestion, right? And that does not just mean that manually chewing your food is the only part, right? Yes, you're manually breaking up that food. Yes, that's great because, hey, it's helping your stomach, right? So you're starting to digest it. You're starting to break it down before it gets to your stomach. But another thing that chewing does, it tells your brain, which tells the rest of your digestive system, hey, we need to prepare for this food. So it starts telling your digestive organs to release different digestive enzymes that help to break down things like fats, proteins, and carbs. So if you're not chewing enough, those enzymes are not going to be released properly, which means when the food does get to your stomach and starts making its way through the intestines, it's not getting broken down properly because it doesn't have the enzymes, right? Doesn't have those little chemicals or proteins to break it down, which means when it gets to your colon, when it gets to your intestines and it's trying to pull out all of the nutrients and turn them into fuel and use them in the body, you're probably not going to pull enough out of it because you didn't break down your food enough, right? So chewing is super important. Another thing is not to multitask. When we eat, we want to be in that parasympathetic state, right? I know we've talked about it a lot. When you're in that fight or flight mode, your gut does not work, right? It's like on pause. It's like hitting the pause button on that digestion. That's why people who are chronically anxious or stuck in that fight or flight mode usually have issues, usually have issues with constipation and really slow digestion. So, to engage in that parasympathetic, get away from screens, try to get away from distractions, try to focus on your food. So focus on the textures, the colors, the smells. What are you eating? Enjoy that experience, but also gives your digestive tract time to actually process the food more efficiently, right? When you're eating, you don't want to drink a lot of fluids while you're eating, like in between bites, right? So what I typically recommend, especially if you have a lot of bloating or issues with digestion or anxiety, try not to have a lot to drink 20 to 30 minutes before you eat or 20 to 30 minutes after you eat. Now, this doesn't say don't drink anything while you're eating. It's just try not to, guzzle 24 to 36 ounces of water or something while you're eating, because that is going to dilute the stomach acid, dilute the enzymes, which means your body's not going to break down those proteins, specifically the proteins, but other things, as efficiently, right? Which again makes it harder to digest the food, which means you're probably not getting as much nutrients out of it as you could be getting. And again, also, that's going to lead to things like gas, bloating, and heartburn, which overstimulate that vagus nerve and can trigger inflammation and trigger anxiety spikes, especially just after you've eaten. So some ways to do that, to kind of calm that, after you've eaten, like 15 to 30 minutes, try like ginger tea or some chamomile tea or just warm water with lemon, which will help to calm that vagus nerve back down, to help calm the anxiety, which will aid in your digestive process, because what are we doing? We're shifting into that parasympathetic mode. We're trying to stay there for just a little while so that our body can break everything down. Okay. Another thing, I know I talk a lot about walking after meals for people who have insulin resistance, PCOS, diabetes, prediabetes, all of that jazz, right? It's great for your blood sugar. It's great for your muscles. It's great for your circulation. However, it is good for digestion too. So like 5 to 10 minutes after you walk, 5 to 10 minutes after you eat, just walk, right? This helps move your digestion. So our digestion, our food moves through our digestive tract in little bitty movements, right? All the way around. When you walk, it helps to stimulate that movement, which means your digestion is moving, which means all of that food is going through your intestines and getting nutrients sucked out so that you get that food and energy, right? So, hello. That's going to be directly related to your mood, right? If you are walking after meals and your anxiety might be kind of triggered by, blood sugar elevating or blood sugar dropping, the walking can help your body utilize the food that you've eaten, which can help to stabilize mood, right? But again, digestion directly affects mood. So if you're walking just for the digestive support alone, also can stabilize mood. So if you are noticing that you have a really tight stomach, you feel like you've got a lot of anxiety and you've got like this knot, or you feel really fatigued and kind of like you've got a tight chest immediately after eating, try something warm on your belly. So like a heating pad or a hot water bottle or something warm to help to increase blood flow to the area, but also help to relax those muscles in your gut. A lot of the times when that tension is there, it's going to cut off blood flow and lead to a lot of anxiety, right? All that tension is just building and building and building, making us feel anxious. It's sending those signals back to the brain, telling us, well, something's wrong. We need to fix it. Something's wrong. Try some warmth, try some heat, or even like a hot Epsom salt bath, right? Something that's going to be warm on the tummy to help it relax a little bit. And you can also always try any of the EFT sessions that we have on here, or breathing exercises that we talk about on this channel. All of that, again, is going to help you shift into that parasympathetic state that you need to be in to digest your food, which will help with any anxiety, right? So gut triggered anxiety is totally real. And I want you guys to know, because I didn't know, right? Like I was having all of these histamine reactions when I was bedridden. Didn't know. Doctors weren't telling me. I had no clue, right? I had to figure it out on my own. I had to figure out what foods were triggering me, right? Because like I said earlier, at my worst point, I was eating like 7 or 8 different foods, right? That's all I could eat. I was allergic to everything else. So let's talk a little bit about how to reduce things that are going to irritate that digestive tract and that can worsen your mood and your state of thinking, right? So, and I don't want you to think that you have to go on some crazy diet long term, or that you have to be super extreme with these things. I'm always very conservative in my approach to treatment and therapy and just different recovery pathways, right? Like the approaches that I take with my clients tend to be pretty conservative, right? And then we build build and build and build. Because that's how you train yourself. Like if you're in the gym working your muscles, you want to get jacked. What do? You don't go in there and immediately start squatting 275 pounds. You're going to hurt yourself, right? So we have to start where you're at, slowly build. So you don't have to try all these things at once. Take them one at a time, see what works for you, throw out what doesn't. So I want you to think about, what is one food or one habit that you've noticed that makes you feel worse, right? This is where the food journal comes in. If it's not something that you can consciously think of, work on that food journal and figure it out, right? And think about one food or one habit that is making you feel worse, but you keep going back to it, right? Maybe it's refined sugar. Maybe it's high sugar snacks. Maybe it's cheese. Maybe it's processed foods. Maybe it's seed oils. Maybe it's alcohol, artificial sweeteners. What are you going back to that is still inflaming your digestive system, right? So the refined sugars and the high sugar snacks. And when I say sugar, I'm not talking carbs. I'm talking sugar, pure cane sugar, right? Not or processed cane sugar, but just sugar, right? The white stuff or brown stuff that comes in the bags that's in all the baked goods and the processed foods. Not carbs in fruit, not carbs in whole grains, sugar. So all of that sugar feeds the bad bacteria. That bad bacteria, when it's overwhelming your digestive tract, causes mood swings, causes blood sugar crashes. It makes it difficult for your digestive tract to help produce serotonin, which makes you feel happy and motivated and driven in life, right? And keeps you functioning and making decisions. Processed foods and seed oils inflame your gut so badly. Again, when I say these things are bad, I'm not saying never have them. I'm saying monitor how much you're eating of these things and like try to cut some out or cut back where you can. Do what you can, because everybody's life looks different, right? So processed foods and seed oils increase gut permeability, which is that leaky gut. It increases inflammation, making your gut more porous, right? And that triggers that low-grade inflammation, triggering that stress response in the brain, triggering anxiety, triggering fatigue. It makes you feel like crap. So alcohol also. Alcohol is another one that disrupts the gut microbiome, right? And when we think of consuming alcohol, not only does it disrupt the bacteria in the gut, because of that disruption, it can cause anxiety that day, but it can also cause anxiety in like this ripple effect for days afterwards due to the disruptions that it's creating in this microbiome and the serotonin and the nervous system response, all of that. Artificial sweeteners too. So sucralose, aspartame, things like that can interfere with your gut bacteria too, which can lead to a lot of bloating, a lot of diarrhea, a lot of anxiety, right? I can't tell you how many patients or clients that I've worked with who are like, well, I need to go low carb. And so they're eating a lot of artificial sweeteners, especially diabetics will eat a lot of artificial sweeteners and then have chronic diarrhea. That chronic diarrhea is not good for a number of reasons, but it is definitely going to contribute to anxiety, not just because of electrolyte imbalances that can happen, nutrient deficiencies, bloating, how it's overstimulating that vagus nerve and putting you in that fight or flight state all of the time. Bad idea. So, okay, let me check my notes and see what else I've got on here, because I've got some more goodies for you guys. Oh yeah, adding in some gut healing foods. So when we think about our gut microbiome, right, we were talking about having that bad bacteria and the good bacteria. And when we have all of that gut inflammation and we have a lot of anxiety, a lot of the time, the bad bacteria are kind of reigning, right? They've taken over the territory. We don't have a lot of good bacteria left. So we need to figure out what foods we can eat to support the good bacteria so that they can kind of overthrow the bad bacteria, right? And imbalance those scales, tip those scales a bit. So when you do this, you want to focus on diversifying your microbiome. And to do that, you have to diversify your diet, right? So think fiber-rich foods, but we don't want to just eat the same fiber source, right? So yes, you can take a fiber supplement. Yes, you can eat more flax seeds or something. But if you focus on incorporating different types of fiber throughout your day, that's going to be best, because the different types are going to feed different types of good bacteria, right? And the more different types of good bacteria you have, the more ways you're going to be able to overthrow the bad bacteria, right? So think things like chia seeds, lentils, oats, high fiber vegetables to fuel and feed and support that good bacteria. You also want fermented foods. Again, if you feel like your anxiety is being driven by histamine reactions like mine was, please avoid fermented foods for a while until you can figure out a baseline for yourself and a plan to move forward. Because I promise you, it's going to be a nightmare if you have histamine intolerance or MCAS or anything like that and then try to incorporate fermented foods. Just don't do it. This is why I say the information I give you guys, research, because you really need to work with a practitioner for these things. But if you listen to your body enough, I truly think that, you can take care of yourself, right? So that being said, though, fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, kefir, don't come at me if I didn't pronounce it the way you like. All of these things provide those living probiotics, those living good positive bacteria to repopulate your digestive tract. So when that bad bacteria has overthrown the good bacteria, you don't have a lot of the good left. You can eat some more of those fermented foods to boost them, right? To give you more, a larger population, to kind of replace those fallen bacteria, to help kind of overthrow that bad bacteria. So prebiotic foods, right? Prebiotic foods like garlic, asparagus, bananas. Avoid bananas if you're histamine intolerant for right now. Feed those healthy bacteria. So the prebiotic foods are going to give the good bacteria everything they need to get from your mouth all the way into your digestive tract, into your intestines, where they thrive. So if they don't have the food and the fuel to get all the way down there, they're going to croak before they get down there, and then, they're still going to be overthrown, right, by the bad bacteria. Another one is bone broth. Bone broth can be very supportive because of the amino acids and the collagen to help repair that digestive tract lining. We talked about leaky gut and that inflammation making it more porous and kind of breaking down the lining of the digestive tract. Bone broth can help to reduce that inflammation. Again, histamine intolerant people, MCAS people, bone broth is not, I don't want to say it's not for you guys, because it can be. I'm just saying be very wary of just diving into it, because bone broth is cooked at a low temperature for a very long amount of time, increases those histamines. So be careful with things like that. Yeah. Okay. So some supplements. Yeah. Let's talk about a few supplements before we finish up. So obviously, there's supplements that you can take instead of just, adding good food in, taking out bad food. Trying all of the things, hitting it from all angles is really going to be your best bet, but you got to figure out what works for you, right? So probiotics and prebiotics come in supplement form. So finding a probiotic strain that works for you, right? There are different strains of bacteria in different types of probiotics for different things. Some are better for histamine reactions, which I talk a lot about because I struggle with those, or I did struggle with those. There are some that are better for anxiety, some that are better for depression, some that are better for inflammation, for constipation, for certain autoimmune diseases, right? So different strains can reduce inflammation and improve mood stability, but we got to figure out what works for you. So prebiotics, again, those can come in capsule form. You can get them in a powder form too. They're usually pretty chalky and don't really taste great because it's just stripped food basically, and it's really fibrous. So if you want to take prebiotic supplements, I definitely recommend getting capsules instead of just a powder, because it's not great. But like we said earlier, those prebiotics are going to feed the good gut bacteria so they can get to where they need to go. They can thrive. They can communicate with your brain, tell it all it needs to know about what's going on in your digestive tract. Digestive enzymes. So when we started this video, we were talking about, well, not when we started, but at some point earlier, we were talking about digestive enzymes, right? We were talking about how chewing is a great first start to your digestion, and making sure you chew enough so that your body starts to produce those digestive enzymes to support the breakdown of your food. so that your body can absorb those nutrients. So if your body is having trouble producing those enzymes for whatever reason, you can buy those in supplement form. They do typically come in two different types. One is with HCl or stomach acid essentially, and one is without. So if you feel like you struggle with a lot of heartburn, I know people are going to argue with me on this, but a lot of the times when we have heartburn, it can actually be because of low stomach acid. I don't want to get into all of that today because I could talk about that for a while, and this video has already been long enough. But if you already have heartburn, it may be that you need more stomach acid. So you can always try either one, figure out which one works best. If you don't want to go all in and buy the one with HCl, get digestive enzymes without. And if you don't have issues with histamines, try to, boost your HCl naturally with something like apple cider vinegar, right? That's a natural way to increase acidity in the stomach before you eat. So just a thought. We also have magnesium, right? So glycinate and citrate are going to be best for kind of relaxing that nervous system and supporting bowel regularity, and kind of helping with the anxiety, right? Which is what our goal is to support our nervous system, reduce anxiety and panic attacks through addressing gut function. Okay, then we have L-glutamine. So L-glutamine is an amino acid. We were talking earlier about leaky gut and how it can get more porous with all of the inflammation, which can let in a lot of bad things into our bloodstream, which increases inflammation throughout the body and in the brain. So L-glutamine is something that helps to repair that gut lining, kind of like bone broth, right? And can actually, there's some research that shows that it can help to reduce sugar cravings and inflammation. So not just inflammation, but sugar cravings, right? Because who likes the sugar? The bad bacteria. So when we reduce that inflammation, we're also getting rid of some of the bad bacteria, reducing some of those sugar cravings. Inflammation also, like we said, triggers that stress response. So when we trigger that stress response loop, we tend to crave a lot of sugar because it's fast, quick energy that our body is wanting. So again, before you try any of these things, I do ask you to pretty please check with your doctor, check with a healthcare provider before starting something, right? Especially if you're already taking medications or you have specific health conditions. It's very important to work with a provider on these things. I'm giving you general education to research on your own. Talk to your doctor about it, right? So again, you don't have to try all these things at once. Pick one, see what works for you, right? So this is really it for today. That's all I had for you guys. I know it went on a little bit longer than I had anticipated. We are about to dive into a quick Q&A session in our private Discord, which is free. I will link all of that below. Yeah, don't forget that we do have one-on-one sessions linked through our website below, and we also have a blog post if you're interested that is up now, which is about 5 signs that your gut is secretly draining your energy. So it's all tied together. We're focusing on your gut health this month and how to support your digestion so that you can feel better, so that you can have more energy, you're not dealing with anxiety and fatigue all the time, and you can get back to living your life and not feeling like crap all the time. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye.